Anytime you're trying to be progressive, anytime that you're trying to do something to help your own, or to make another step in life for yourself, you're chopped down before you can really get it up and going. It's not right, but it happens. And a lot of times you have to question yourself. You have to question yourself. Everything that you read in the media about groups, about people, don't believe it. Judge for yourself. Read in between the lines. The truth is in there sometimes. Most of the times, it's not. It's hyper. It's hype. Sensationalized. Like they did us. Sensationalized. To make it appear to be worse than what it was. Because if it was so bad, believe me, that many people, or however many people they say, would not be living there. And in any group or organization, you do have your disgruntled people, because things may not be going their way at that time. And you hear them, and you try to appease them, but there's always going to be those that are not pleased, especially if they're not getting what they want. So they'll wreak havoc for everyone else. And right now, we're doing the best that we can, scattered or whatever, to stay together and to free our master teacher. That's what we're doing. May 8th, we will not let it die. We can't let it die because it happened. That's something that has to be reiterated, because it can happen to you just like it happened to us. If they can break into an old lady's home in Atlanta and kill an old lady, you can imagine what they can do to you in your home. Okay? And that's not to say all law enforcement is bad. No, you can't say that, because they're here to protect. However, there are those that take their positions and misuse it for personal gain. Okay? And a lot of local officials, that's what happened with us now, because they destroyed something that could have helped them somewhere down the line. We are people's people. We're not about ourselves. We weren't just about Tamaray. We were about the town of Edenton as well. Adopted as our town, as our home. And to do things that was not only progressive for us, but was progressive for the town as well. But sometimes when you move into smaller towns who are not ready for that type of progression, they do things to stagnate you because they're not ready. We were trying to provide taxi services so that the elders there could get around. We were trying to do so many things to help the town, but they weren't ready. And because they knew they weren't ready and they couldn't topple us, or they couldn't have control over what we were doing, the best thing for them to do is to destroy it. And that's what they did. But Tamaray will live forever, because it will always live in our hearts. It will always be a part of us. And when you think about Tamaray, you're going to think about us, because it's our dream.
Of people who were either in Athens or not actually on the land of Tamaray, but involved in the events of that day. When you're talking, it triggered two thoughts in my mind. It's interesting, you said you never had a gun in your face. And many of us are from urban centers. I'm from Chicago, a lot of people from New York, a lot of people from very violent places. But we never experienced violence like we experienced at the hands of the agents that day. I've never had that happen to me. And part of the reason many of us came into the community is so that we would never have that happen to us, so that our children would be safe. So to have built this peaceful utopia all together, and to have it invaded by so much violence and be painted as criminals, where all we wanted to do was live a peaceful existence, puts things in a different perspective of who's a real criminal. I never had wu-nuwaupu pull no gun on me. I never felt threatened at a family event, ever. I remember one of the first impressions I had is I had never been around so many Nubian people in such a peaceful, positive, no alcohol, no cigarettes, no violent environment. That had been my entire experience with wu-nuwaupu up until May 8th, 2002. And when the violence came, it did not come from us. And the second thing it triggered is the sister Amina and I, after everything happened on May 8th, a lot of sisters with children departed from the land just for safety because we didn't know what was going to happen. And some of us stayed. And to go into the guest houses and to see the lack of respect for our belongings and our things, we were completely violated. Everyone's belongings, personal clothes, personal items were just strewn all over the floor in houses. It was a layer this thick on the floor of people's things because they just took them out, threw their beds, threw their covers, threw their children's stuff, left the food on the counters, which they had dug in, put holes in the floor. I mean, it was a complete and total violation. And this was in all different guest houses all over. None of these people were involved in the case. None of these people, there was any evidence involved with the case, but yet all their personal items were either taken or thrown around, and even items were planted in the homes that we know were not there. So that day was a total violation of a lot of people. And that night, to have to go from being a peaceful Tamaray to sleeping in your clothes with sneakers on because you think they're coming back, not knowing you're going to wake up and there's only a few people left. I'll never forget sleeping in my sweats and sneakers because we thought they were coming back. You remember?
We taking the children for safety because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if they were going to come back or whatever. And a few of us decided to stay. I was there, Dana was there, and a few other sisters. It was a little about, 8 of us together. And yeah, we did. We slept in sweats and sneakers, and everybody tried to stay together at the same time, tried to be alert. We walked wherever we had to go together. Because they left late that evening.
Right.
It was really, really late that night, about 10 or 11. And they were all in the woods. And we were afraid because we didn't know if they were going to stay in the woods, if they were going to wait until after, people might have left or whatever, and they just launched this big attack. And then the next morning you hear it in the news and everybody's dead. We really didn't know what the case. The thing was basically to get the children out to safety, get the mothers with the children, get them out to safety. And for those of us that just wanted to be back to make sure that everything was okay there.
And I can remember going to throw out the trash and hearing the siren and running.
And the sad part about it also is that once the children did come back, they were devastated. It was sad because they would be out on the playground playing. They'll hear a helicopter and would run, screaming. They're coming again, they're coming again. And you're like, it's okay, you have to comfort them. And there's no help for them after that, too. I mean, the thing is that they wanted restitution to give so-called psychological help. But there was there was no help provided for the ones that were behind. The ones that went through the test and they could see that nothing had happened to them. They asked them questions about sex and different things and opened their minds up to things that they had no knowledge about.
Yeah. What she's referring to is a lot of our children were taken for exams